My name is Aarush. I filmed this documentary with my friend Caleb. Allow me to give you a very brief overview of this hurricane. Hurricane Helene was a devastating tropical storm that caused atrocities across the southeastern United States. It was the strongest hurricane on record to strike the Big Bend region of Florida, the deadliest Atlantic hurricane since Maria in 2017, and the deadliest to strike the mainland U.S. since Katrina in 2005. The storm caused catastrophic rainfall-triggered flooding in western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and southwestern Virginia, and spawned numerous tornadoes. Let's focus on western North Carolina. It is extremely uncommon and abnormal for a hurricane to come close to western North Carolina, let alone pass over it. And it shows. The area's aging sewage system, coupled with the sheer unpredictability of this hurricane, caused massive and numerous floods. The hurricane died down and passed over Tennessee before finally disappearing. At the end of November, Caleb and I drove to Chimney Rock in Asheville to gain footage of the destruction and interview victims and people involved in cleanup efforts. We were blessed with the opportunity to not only interview a police officer, but the mayor of Chimney Rock. In addition to these valuable insights, we also contacted an expert in meteorology, a PhD candidate named Alex Mitchell, who further explained how hurricanes work and Helene in specific. Something major we picked up from this interview is that Helene's most dangerous component wasn't the fact that it had wind speeds and rainfall that rivals big names like Maria and Katrina, but its sheer unpredictability. Here's a photo of the predicted path of destruction during the actual hurricane. Notice anything funny? Yes, the path doesn't even touch North Carolina, which begs the question, what went wrong in this calculation? Stay tuned for the answer. So without further ado, here's our interview with the mayor of Chimney Rock.
Okay, so to start off, what's your name and what do you do?
Peter O Leary, and I have a business here in town, Bubba O Leary's General Store,
Okay.
and then I'm also mayor of Chimney Rock Village. I'm the main representative for the village.
Did you or your family experience any hardships during this?
Yeah, we have a business, Bubba O Leary's General Store, and half of our business the building was destroyed, half of it.
Oh, really?
And then the other building that is remaining had a lot of mud in it, a lot of mud on our inventory. So we had, we've had quite a bit of damage to our family business. Yes. Life doesn't always go the way you planned it. Our life was headed towards retirement, I guess, if you will. My kids were thinking of taking over the business, and now it's taken a 180-degree turn. So life doesn't always go in a smooth, straight line. It has some twists and turns, and sometimes some turns that are in the totally different direction than you might have expected. So y'all are too young to realize that, but once you get going in life and you have a job and a career and a family, and you think everything's going in one direction, and then a lot of things can change it. In our case, it was a flood that devastated the village, destroyed our business as well as many others, and now we're not headed in the direction we were headed in. We're headed in a totally different direction. As far as changing me as a person, it's made me realize that relationships and the way you interact and help people is much more important than the things you accumulate. And I think a lot of people just in life, it tends to become how important is my job? How much money am I making? How many things can I accumulate? And, you realize in a disaster like this that's really not what the most important part in life is. The most important part is your relationships with people, with your family, with your neighborhood, your community. And then how can you help those people? How can you make everybody's life better?
Yeah.
That's what is important. And that's what you realize in an event like this is, those are the things that come to the forefront, and it's not so much the stuff you had, because maybe a lot of the stuff you had is no longer there.
You can see, many homes and stuff have been destroyed, but were there any ways that the community has come together to support each other?
Oh yeah, it's like you said, the destruction was unimaginable, hard to believe. The community is 100% shut down. 100% of the businesses are out of business. 100% of the people that worked here are unemployed. So it's been devastating to the community. But what we're doing as a community, I mean, it's really pulled everybody together in the sense that we all want to rebuild. We all realize that Chimney Rock is a special place. That's why we came here in the beginning.
So what message do you have to visitors considering a trip to Chimney Rock?
Be patient. If you want to visit Chimney Rock, be patient. We will be back. Right now, it's just it's unsafe. None of the businesses are open. DOT is working very hard to rebuild the road. That's a multi-year project. Chimney Rock Park is closed. That's a multi-year project to get that reopened again. So we want people to come and visit, but just please be patient because it's not going to be right away. We are hopeful that we can be open in the summer of 2025, at least for the downtown area, and that's our goal. The volunteers are very helpful. We had the 101st Airborne in here for a couple of weeks and had about 100 to 200 troops, and they were using shovels and buckets to get the mud out of stores. So it was a lot of physical labor. As far as just acts of kindness, I mean, we've been surrounded by those on a daily basis. We've got a group in here, a faith-based group, Spokes of Hope, and they are just tremendous. They've done a tremendous amount of work, volunteer labor. They've got a lot of volunteer or donated supplies, donated building materials. So just the generosity and the kindness and the concern from people all over the country, not just people here, but people that are donating. We have people that we've had people donate to our website, our Give, Send, Go fund. We've had $10,000 donations. We've had $5 donations. Every single one of them is important because it shows support. It shows that people want to help us rebuild, and that keeps us going. When you have acts of kindness like that.
Are there any specific charities you like to shout out so people can donate to them?
Yeah, Chimney Rock, our Facebook page, Chimney Rock Village NC, has a link to our Give, Send, Go account. And that's very important if people want to just donate to help the people here rebuild. We've had tremendous help from an organization called Spokes of Hope. And if people want to donate with them or come up here and volunteer, they have a volunteer tent set up at the entrance to Chimney Rock. And if you show up and want to donate your time for one day or a whole week or 2 weeks, I mean, they can put you to work. So either one of those are great. Those are the ones that have helped us the most.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to people who are going through the struggles of the hurricane and the aftermath of it?
I think for any hurricane or any disaster, I mean, having lived through this and experienced it firsthand, I would just encourage people to really lean on your neighbors and lean on the volunteers that come in because they are there to help. And I know initially there was some reluctance from some business owners and maybe even private property owners to let people help them. And we've got to just realize that when something like this happens, that's a way for people to give. If they can come and volunteer their labor and just help you do something, that means even more to them probably than it does to you. I would just encourage people to come visit when they can. This is going to take us years and years, so don't forget us because we're going to be here. But we are going to recover. And the old Chimney Rock Village is gone, but the new Chimney Rock Village is being built right now, and it's going to be better than ever.
Okay. That's awesome.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. There you go. All right. Really. Good to meet you guys.
Great to meet you.
Yeah,
Okay. So, what was your toughest moment for you personally during the hurricane?
Just trying to get up here, trying to get to the people. The debris piles and stuff were so big that it's very hard to get in here to get the people to try to help them.
I understand, yeah. Is there a specific person or situation you helped during the hurricane that really stuck with you?
Yes, there's several that we had to walk into people and just looking for people in homes and stuff like that. It was devastating.
Yeah. How did the hurricane affect your family or your own home while you were out helping others?
Okay, I had no power for about 7 days.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
And we lost everything in our freezer. We didn't lose a lot. It tore my trees up and some stuff like that, but nothing terrible. I mean,
oh wow.
I felt fortunate that that I had no more damage than what I had.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
How did you handle the stress of working long hours during such a big disaster?
Well, by working out. I'd go to the gym before I came in, and then we'd go out here and we'd
That's
do our
nice.
thing all day.
Yeah. Did you feel the community come together during the hurricane, and how did that impact you personally?
Well, it did come together. All of the law enforcement agencies came together. We had agencies from all over North Carolina come in, Florida. We had people from all over the country, and there's still people coming up here now
Wow,
delivering
that's
stuff. There was
crazy.
a load just came in just a few minutes ago before y'all pulled up.
Wow,
So it's been good.
that's
Big
nice.
a big outreach. It makes you feel good about people.
Yeah. And in your opinion, how long do you think it's gonna take Chimney Rock to make a full recovery?
I would say 4 or 5 years.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
That's
Well,
like
there's no roads all the way to Bat Cave, so it's going
wow.
to take a while to get that road system back, and then for them to get some of the stuff built back, it's going to take a while.
That's
It's going to be a long
devastating.
recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for interviewing me.
Yep. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I hope the mayor can help you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. As Hurricane Helene moved inland, western North Carolina became an unexpected victim. Western North Carolina is more than often considered a safe haven from tropical natural disasters, such as a hurricane, which is why the destruction of Helene was as unexpected as it was unwelcome. The floods displaced hundreds of families, leaving many without homes or access to basic resources. Emergency responders struggled to reach those stranded in higher elevations, and the city's aging drainage infrastructure was no match for Helene's downpour. Experts note that Asheville's experience underscores a growing concern. As climate change intensifies, hurricanes like Helene are retaining strength further inland, exposing regions like the Appalachians to a risk previously unimagined.
I'm Caleb, and next up is the interview between me, Aarush, and Alex Mitchell. Alex Mitchell is a PhD candidate at the University of Albany. His primary research area is the variability and extratropical transition of eastern North Pacific tropical cyclones. How, in what way is Hurricane Helen like different than other storms?
So, like I said earlier, too, like in the earlier part of this conversation, one of the biggest, unique things about the storm was its path, right? If you can
Yeah,
recall, Hurricane Helene kind of went in a cyclonic motion, or in other words, like a counterclockwise motion from Florida into North Carolina,
Of
right?
course,
It
yes.
was it was interacting with what we call a cutoff cyclone or a cutoff upper level low, which is basically a cyclonic vortex that basically strips off from the main jet stream and positions itself usually over one area. So what happened was the tropical cyclone itself, Helene, interacted with that cutoff low or that cutoff feature. And what it ended up doing is it steered the system cyclonically as a result. Now, why that pathway was so unique and why it was so anomalous in terms of the impacts was because when you have a system that moves in a forward translation, or in other words, when a system is moving towards topography or towards mountains, what ends up happening a lot of times is you can get what we call upslope flow. So basically, all that means is that flow is directed from the surface up, right? It goes from the surface up the mountain because wind is being pushed towards it, right? It's got to go somewhere.
yeah.
It can't go down. It has to go up. Um, as a result of that, when Hurricane Helene was coming in, like hooking in like this, um, that upslope flow generated rainfall because what happens is was when air is pushed up like this, it becomes unstable, and that instability creates rainfall as a result. So what happened with Hurricane Helene, of course, is that translation of that system pushing that air up along the mountains created more rainfall that would have happened than otherwise from any typical rainstorm that they get in that area. And another reason is because again, when you have a cutoff low like that and it interacts with a system, that's not something that commonly happens over the southeastern U.S. Not in the way that system evolved over time. And one of the things to keep in mind too with tropical cyclones, Hurricane Helene, while it was a hurricane when it made landfall in Florida, right? As it moved north, the system itself began to change, right? It began to evolve. It began to become something else. It was becoming an extratropical cyclone, which is different than a tropical cyclone. Extratropical cyclone is basically a cyclone that forms due to differences in temperature across space. These are cyclones that we get in the wintertime, right, from like snowstorms. But what ends up happening with hurricanes as they move north is they begin to transition. And so that in itself, that change in process can also enable or create more rainfall than otherwise, with respect to the system itself. Because as these systems transition, they tend to spread out, horizontally, the rainfall and the wind itself. So, Hurricane Helene had a lot of different things about it as it made landfall that created the high intense rainfall that we saw over Western North Carolina. And, a lot of conversations are coming back to the idea of like, what made the cyclone so intense? Was it the effects of climate change? Was it the dynamics associated with it? In other words, was it the mechanisms that were different? Was it the path that was really unique, or was it a combination of all the three, right? There's a lot of things you have to consider about the intensity of a tropical cyclone. It's not just wind speeds, it's the rainfall too. And the rainfall is a trickier question to ask because a lot of things create rain, but not so much in terms of the wind. We know what the wind was generated by mostly, but the rainfall is where the strongest questions come in because there's a lot we still are exploring with respect to that. But there's a high confidence that things like climate change, made the system or Hurricane Helene more intense as a result.
How do you think climate change has affected other hurricanes like this one? Um,
It's tough because there's a lot of things that climate change induces over time with respect to hurricanes. So in other words, climate change affects the sea surface temperatures, right? So if it warms up sea surface temperatures, that creates basically more fuel or more energy for hurricanes to become stronger. That's one way to think about it. Another way to think about it is the increase in water vapor in the atmosphere. If you have higher temperatures across the globe, you're going to have more water vapor suspended in the air potentially. And that's what we call the Clapeyron relation. So that is essentially saying what's the direct relationship between temperature and water vapor. Well, if you increase the temperature, well, by using this equation, you also increase the water vapor as a result. So in other words, if you have increased water vapor in hurricanes, what that leads to is potentially more thunderstorms within the system itself, which makes the hurricane stronger, and it can produce more rainfall because if you have more water vapor, you have more rainfall. So that makes that more intense in that way too. Another way is the shifting and changes of the patterns themselves. So remember I was talking about a cutoff cyclone that interacted with Hurricane Helene. Well, there's still a lot of uncertainty about how these patterns might change in a future climate. So in other words, do we expect to see more cutoff cyclones over the southeastern United States? Do we expect to see these hurricanes interacting with the jet stream in that way? And also, one thing I haven't touched on is just the actual speed of the hurricane, right? How fast is it moving? So, Hurricane Harvey, when it made landfall in Texas, one of the biggest drivers of the impacts in that area was because the system was slowly moving west, right? Hurricane Helene was a fast-moving system, but what made it intense was the topography and how it interacted with the elevated areas over the western parts of the state or North Carolina. So, climate change can impact hurricanes in a lot of ways, and definitely as it relates to impacts as a whole, like for those at the ground. But we're still trying to understand what it might mean for hurricanes to be stronger in a future climate. Does it mean that they're more intense for wind speed? Does it mean that they're more intense in rainfall? Does it mean a combination of both? Does it mean that they slow down more? Does it mean that they take a weird path and go into the mountains like we saw with Helene? We're still trying to answer a lot of questions, but we have a higher confidence as time goes on that climate change will enable stronger systems as a whole.
okay.
Of course. So, and like, as in regard to like, Hurricane Helene's path and how it went straight into, the Appalachia, of course. So, what do you think we can learn from Helene to like better prepare for future storms?
I think the way we communicate risk is the biggest lesson to take away from this storm. I think, it's very important to understand how and why it happened, but I think it's even more important to make sure that those who don't experience this kind of phenomenon very often, as a matter of fact, I don't think any resident in Western North Carolina has dealt with any hurricanes over the last century. And so, that being said, it makes it's a big deal to try to communicate risk to those who may not, be used to that risk, especially as systems might be getting stronger as we go forward. So I think the biggest learning communicate to people how devastating these impacts can be for a given area when they don't experience it quite often or at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that communication side is something that is an ongoing science in our field. We're still always trying to figure out what's the best way to communicate these extreme forecasts and how can we make people take action, right? I don't think people expected the hurricane to be more intense further north than it did when it made landfall in terms of like the impacts and the amount of rain it generated. Um, so I think that's probably the most interesting physical aspect of the system is, we have rainfall that's generated by tropical cyclones that are purely tropical, but when they begin to change and evolve, they can produce even more impacts further down, or like, I guess I should say further north, depending on the scenario. So,
Yeah.
One of the takeaways here is, it doesn't take a category 3, 4, or 5 to cause problems. As a matter of fact, Hurricane Helene was less than what, category 1 at the time when it was in North Carolina. It had already made landfall. It weakened, dramatically in terms of wind speed, but not in terms of rainfall. So I think the biggest takeaway is how we're going to be able to communicate, again, this rainfall intensity with systems when we have the word category something attached to the hurricane itself, that creates, confusion among people.
So just getting people to understand what their category means, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, or exactly that. Trying to translate all the different impacts into one category it's basically impossible, right? Our
yeah,
category system that we use today is purely based on wind speeds. It has nothing to do with rainfall.
Of course.
Um, and there's a lot of conversations among scientists and operational meteorologists and others about, retiring this category system for how we describe hurricanes. But that's a tougher challenge, right? Because everyone's so used to that. Everyone's so used to hearing the word category. So getting rid of it is not really an option either. But determining a way to either add or change the way we view it is going to have to be something we continue to discuss and
yeah,
research, because I think some operational meteorologists today, especially certain entities like the NHC and others, they have started adopting different languages to describe the intensities of these systems, right? They might still say category something, but it might not just be for, the typical category, like in terms of wind speed. They might say, oh, for rainfall, we're going to have a category 3 intensity. That might confuse people still, but we're kind of basically leaning towards that direction. We're trying to make sure
yeah.
that we pick up on the main impacts and describing them through categories or some intensity metric overall. But yes, we have to get away from just describing it with 1 or 2 words,
For
right?
sure.
It has to be more detailed for people to understand the risk.
All right.
And so, one question I had was like the way Hurricane Helene went into a mountainous region so unexpectedly. Do you think that's going to happen a lot more in the future, or do you think that's going to be like more of a rare thing that just happened with Hurricane Helene, maybe like 1 or 2 times in the future?
That's a great question. I think we don't know the answers yet. I really don't think we know the answers yet, because the way this system evolved was through a rare, what we call a synoptic or like large scale. This was a rare large scale setup that allowed this hurricane to take the path that it did. Um, we don't really know if that's something to expect more often, in terms of frequency going forward, or if that's something that was just a black swan event, basically, something that only occurs once in, it's like what they call a 1 in 1,000 year event. It's hard to determine though, because, we have climate models that show, potential differences in the way hurricanes move over time. We're not really clear. We have no true consensus on what those changes might look like. We don't even have a good consensus on what the patterns might look like going forward, like the upper level patterns, the jet stream patterns. So there's a lot to consider here. And for example, Hurricane Helene, also occurred, during an El Nino year. And or it occurred during El Nino, right? And so that's something that we have to keep in mind too, right? In terms of, the impact, or sorry, not El Nino, it occurred during La Nina, but the impacts related to INSO as a whole, El Nino, La Nina, there's still a lot of conversations and questions about that too, in terms of, how those might affect the large scale patterns that change the steering of these hurricanes going forward. But the good answer I have right now is I don't know. I have no idea. No one really knows if these hurricane tracks might change going forward. But what we are becoming more certain about is that these hurricanes might become more intense over time, both in wind speed and in rainfall, but more so rainfall.
I think I mean, unless Aarush, you have anything else, I think that's probably all we
Yeah, I think
need.
that's all we need. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, great. I'm like I said, I'm happy to answer any of the questions that you might have. Going forward, I'm always an email around if you just want to send out a question or two. Otherwise, I looking forward to seeing how this all comes together for you guys. It seems like it's probably a lot of work, but it's going to be worthwhile if it comes together really well.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no, thank you.
During the process of this documentary, Aarush and I took a trip to Chimney Rock to see the full extent of its destruction. What you are about to see is some of the footage we recorded and our initial thoughts on the matter.
I have called you children, I have called you son. What is there to answer if I'm the only one? Morning comes in paradise, morning comes in light. Still I must obey, still I must invite. If there's anything to say, if there's anything to do, if there's any other way, I'll do anything for you. I was dressed in embarrassment, I was dressed in wine. If you had a part of me, will you take your time? Even if I come back, even if I die, is there some idea to replace my life? Like a father to impress, like a mother's morning dress. If you ever make a mess, I'll do anything for you.
that's going to be it for our documentary. This has truly been an extremely unforgettable experience for Caleb and I, and we have learned so much from it. Thank you so much to everybody who's helped us, from the mayor to Mr. Mitchell to the law enforcement to our science teacher and the other countless people. And thank you so much for watching.